Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well and staying safe. For this video, we'll be going through a unboxing and review of the Transformers Studio Series number 65 release, which is Voyager Blitzwing. And as I mentioned, this is from the Transformers, specifically the Transformers Bumblebee movie. And this particular instance of Blitzwing was released about 2020. So, something around the order of 2 years down the track. Interesting how packaging has changed a little bit in the course of 2 years. Most notably, the slow progressive removal of that giant plastic window. Although that's obviously not why we're here. But yes, this has been in the to-do backlog for a while, which goes to show how long I've been wanting to try and get into YouTube videos, so it's never too late, really. So, Blitzwing, why has Blitzwing come along? With the recent Playmo unboxings of various Transformers kits / sets kits, most notably from the Trumpeter Doyusha series, which is all Transformers Bumblebee, I thought I'd actually do Blitzwing just to see how the model kit will compare. I can safely say I do not expect the kit of Blitzwing to be even the same height as the toy of Blitzwing, but it'll be a nice little comparison point when the time comes. So here we are doing a unboxing and review of Blitzwing 2 years well after his release. People probably don't even remember. So Voyager Blitzwing, the 65th release of the Studio Series line. So now that it's been 2 years since, I think we're about into the 90s now. So the Studio Series has been doing quite well for at least 2 years, if not longer. So there you go. Hopefully, well, there's plenty of movies to go through and things like that. But anyway, here we have the front of the actual box with a nice CGI shot of Blitzwing down here and the see-through plastic window into Blitzwing in his robot mode. Otherwise, the rest of the Studio Series packaging has actually remained quite consistent, which is a good staple of the line. Obviously, this little window thing will change. In terms of the rest of the box, so we do have just a quick acknowledgement that Blitzwing is a Voyager class. Studio Series is release box number, and another shot of Blitzwing. Yet another shot of Blitzwing. Don't know why that's an Autobot logo. Can't remember if they interchange between Autobot and Decepticon logos. I haven't opened a lot of Studio Series stuff recently. I've got some lined up, but I'll keep an eye on that. So another shot of Blitzwing. Top of the box, it's just basically Transformers Bumblebee looking into the rest of the box. In terms of the back, so we have Blitzwing in his robot mode and his jet mode. Doesn't look too bad. I still think that he should have been ramjet, but that's me. I don't think I'm the only one, but yeah. 27 steps to convert him from robot to jet and back, and we do get a bit of a preview of the backdrop that he'll be included in. So this does look like the initial scene of Blitzwing tracking Bumblebee down to Earth, and oops, of course I had to bump the camera, but it does actually have a little statement of Blitzwing silences Bumblebee. So this would have been the scene where Blitzwing basically destroys Bumblebee's voice box. So that is the back of the box. So now that we've had a quick look of the box, I think the most important thing will be to open it and actually have a better look at Blitzwing and his inclusions. Given I can see his weapon tucked away in the corner there, so Transformers being Transformers, especially Studio Series, with the main robot, an accessory or two. In this case, the backdrop and his instruction manual. And with Blitzwing now out of his box and his little plastic well, not really clamshell, but plastic casing. So Blitzwing, as we can see, his backdrop, which I will pop out of the camera view in a moment, his instruction manual, and 2 accessories. I actually thought he was only going to come with the one, but he actually does come with both his accessories that he displayed in the movie. So that's pretty cool. So how do we do this? So we're trying to figure out a good way of doing some of these things. So I will take Blitzwing out, just pop him over here for a moment. I guess we'll just have a quick look at his backdrop, which isn't too bad. It's a decent sized backdrop, but obviously being a Voyager, it's the size of a Voyager toy. So we do have that canyon military type background for Blitzwing. Otherwise the rest of the backdrop is still the same that we're quite used to. And I do like how each of these backdrops are numbered, so you actually know who it belongs to. That's the backdrop, so we'll put that to the side for the time being. So Blitzwing, 2 accessories, and the instructions. So Blitzwing, just go over there. You're going to lean back a little bit. That's fine. We'll look at those in a minute. In terms of your instructions, so usual instruction manual with a shot of Blitzwing in his robot mode. It's the front. So whilst he's in his robot mode, so it'll give you an indication of how to equip his weapon, how some of his missile pod type things are detachable. Not fully sure why, but it's good to know. And then the bottom is how to use his other hand weapon, which basically involves pulling his hand out, putting the other one in, and there will be some on the back storage for it when not in use. And yes, I'm not sure why the things can pop off the wings, but oh well. The more you know. I won't go into too much detail with his instructions, but the instructions will start the conversion process from his robot mode to his jet mode. So, as to be expected with any transformer, lots of twisting, flipping, bending, and things like that. It does look quite funny come step 7 because all his limbs are basically pointing out in a weird X configuration. But there's a lot of swiveling and converting his legs into what I suspect are the back of his jet mode. And the subsequent flipping over of his wings. And I'll just flip this over to the other side. Nice long and convoluted manual. Continuing on and flipping things around. This is definitely going to be a fun 27-step conversion, I can assure you. Interesting little step at step 19. Hard to imagine that this is going to end up looking like a jet. But it's for 27 steps does look quite, I won't necessarily say intuitive because I'm not fully paying attention, but for 27 steps it does look like it should be of a decent amount of interaction to use up some time. And then by step 27 we do have the completed jet mode. And even in his jet mode he does have options on where to store accessories and things like that, which is cool. So it's actually nice that he's got some clever storage options. And then we have a nice little preview of the next Voyager, which was Skipjack, one of the Transformer movie Constructicons. So that was Blitzwing's instructions. In terms of his accessories, so we have his main weapon, if it ever comes into focus. There we go. So some good detailing on it, which is good, and it just looks like it will neatly insert into his hand, and there will also be an extra little plug in there to keep it secure, which is very good. I know certain Gunpla kits have that nice little gimmick where there's a tab, well, an item to lock into a tab in the forearm. So it's nice that some of these Transformers do the same thing as well. So there is his main weapon. And lastly, we have his other weapon, which is basically his bit of a transforming hand to make a very small bladed weapon. And if I remember correctly, this is how he basically destroyed Bumblebee's voice box, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I watched the movie, so I may be a bit hazy in my detail. So that was his second accessory. So, now that we've looked at his accessories and his manual, here is Blitzwing, a very decent sized Voyager, quite sturdy. So, granted you have to tab in a few things after you've taken him out of his box, but very sturdy. I don't know if he'd still be sturdy if I put his weapons on. I think he would be, but it's good to know he's not going to have any weird rattling. So, Blitzwing from the front, quite good, quite detailed. I'd say still quite very on-screen accurate. His side profile, his back profile, which makes him obviously look like a Seeker through and through. Top, from the bottom, to be expected that there's a lot of hollow pieces. And from the other side, I guess from a different angle, it's actually not too bad at all. So yeah, he's I think they've done quite well in bringing Blitzwing into toy form. In terms of articulation, whilst he's in his robot mode, so before we do anything, yes, he will stand quite happily on his own 2 feet. Actually, before we do articulation, let's actually do his weapons. So that blaster will secure in very nicely. Oops. And then watch me start ad hoc transforming him for no good reason. So, oh, I see what I'm doing. Okay. Maybe I will stop putting so much pressure there. In fact, I'm actually surprised that he's okay, well, let's not try to keep trying to inadvertently transform him. So that's his weapon. And so his hand does come out quite nicely. And can be replaced quite easily with his other weapon. So that is Blitzwing with his 2 weapons attached. And yes, they're actually quite sturdy as well, which is quite good. So, now we'll go into articulation. We'll just replace your hand because there is some articulation in your hand which is kind of nifty. Watch me struggle taking the gun out. Okay. Now, let's see if we can do some articulation without actually trying to transform you. So in terms of the head, we can get a full 360. The detailing on the head is quite nice, including his little face rebreather look. So that's his head. We do have a little bit of movement in some of these wing bits, but that's on account of transformation. As we saw in the instructions, these items will detach. In terms of his arms, actually I wonder, his wings will actually fold back as well. In fact, they will fold all the way back. If you want to give yourself a bit more space, he's got some little moving parts up here. In terms of the arm, and okay, let's see if I can do this without constantly. Okay. So that will go all the way around. My one is quite particularly stiff, which is good. At least it's good to know that there is a 360 at the shoulder that is very tight. So yes, he can do that. I'd imagine over time that will loosen up a little bit. But that's the upper arm. His arm will also go all the way out that way, all the way down. So that's quite nice. Does he have? He also has full rotation at the top of the arm. And he has a, surprisingly, he also has a 2-point bend elbow. So his arm can go up all the way like that, and also go all the way back down. His hand can swivel around, and this hand, and only this hand, has a little bit of a opening and closing hand movement as well, which is actually quite cool. Also to support his holding of his weapon, and naturally the tab in there will probably help as well. And if we were to look across to his other hand, that is also already in a bit of an open position with a similar tab. I guess if you wanted to switch out arms for whichever arm is being his blaster arm. So that was the movement in his arms. In terms of his lower body, he has a bit of a waist swivel. However, it is impeded by this part of his lower torso. So you can move it a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, but that's about it. I guess if you move this up, you can move it a little bit more, but that will be the extent of the amount of swivel within the waist. In terms of the legs, can't quite do the full splits because the sides of his, I know a Gumpler would be skirting on it, but that's not part of his skirting, that's just part of his thighs, will catch with the waist, so they will only go out that far. Bit of a callback to that section in his instruction manual where he's doing a bit of a crossing. So there's that. His legs can move forward and a bit to the back. I guess if I tab this up, it can probably move a little bit more, but there's a lot of catching in that area, so don't expect him to be swinging all the way back. He can definitely swing all the way forward, back into the sides, catching through this particular part of his thigh, and then that part there. Does he have... He can freely do a nice full rotation at the top of his leg, which is cool. And even though that there's that piece, it actually doesn't catch, which is really cool. In terms of his knee, standard knee bend, just at the one point. So it can go like that, which is pretty cool. And it does straighten out quite nicely. No real articulation at his feet, other than probably artifacts of his transformation, so they can go a little bit like that. His toes can have a bit of a bend. And yeah, that's that. And these little flaps, they do move, but once again, more tied into his transformation, no doubt. So that was a look at his articulation in his robot mode, which is quite good, especially for a Voyager, up until parts of his upper legs anyway, but I guess that's to be expected that some things would catch. I'm going to go through the wonderful process of the 27-step conversion into his jet mode, and we'll have a quick look at that, and then I will provide some further commentary about Blitzwing. And after a very fun ordeal of transforming Blitzwing, yes, once again, reinforcing, I'm glad I do not record live transformations, at least not on the first attempt. That did feel like a long time. So here we have a fully transformed Blitzwing into his jet mode. Not a bad looking jet mode at all. Definitely quite good looking, so just excuse me one moment. So we have the top of his jet mode. Now I will mention some of this little bit later on. So top of the jet mode, not too bad looking at all. From the side, from the bottom, and for the most part everything does tuck away generally quite nicely. From a front-on angle, bit of a top-down. From the rear, top-down from the rear. I guess from another side. So it's actually definitely not too bad. I guess on the commentary on his bottom, so he does actually have a front landing gear. His main weapon does stow away quite nicely here. These little missiles, now I know why they're detachable, because they do flip positions, so they can be reattached into some tabs within his arms. And his little other close combat weapon is attached to one of his back tail wings. And he does have built-in gears on his feet. So that's his bottom bit, which, as I said, actually doesn't look that bad at all. In terms of his top, his canopy can open, and that is the back of his head neatly tucked away in there, which is quite cool. His little tail fins do have a little bit of movement, but given that it's his alt mode, not really supposed to move. Same with his tail fins, there's a little bit of movement, but more of an artifact as of a part of his transformation. Now, one bit I did struggle with, and watch as it probably ends up resolving itself. So these little two sections here, they're little parts that are on his arms that rotate and interlock into his wings. to fill up the wings. This side has nicely locked in. This side hasn't, and you can see that there's a little tab in there that this bit isn't catching over quite nicely, or if it does, it's being impeded elsewhere. So I'm hoping that will fix itself up over a few more transformations as the joints and everything just get put under a little bit of duress, in a good way, not in a bad way, just to get some of that movement happening, and hopefully once I do the pictures for Blitzwing, that'll resolve itself. So overall, a fairly solid looking alt mode. The transformation definitely wasn't too bad. So where are we? So the legs were pretty straightforward. Flipping over the main body wasn't too bad at all, and the arms do tuck away, and they definitely don't tab over, but they do tuck away fairly nicely. And then the rest of it isn't too bad at all. So I'd just say his transformation is quite solid and intuitive if you do give yourself a bit of a primer by looking at the manual to begin with. And I think that's probably about it in terms of articulation, transformation, and feel. We'll do the right thing and put your landing gear down. Not that you really need it, I'm sure other things are probably keeping you propped up. So, overall, definitely not a bad Voyager figure. His robot mode is very spot on in terms of general on-screen appearance, which is quite good, and it's got some solid articulation. I think the only thing to be mindful of is when, especially with his arms, as we noticed in the beginning of the video, if you move them around a bit too much, you can just unintentionally detach his wings from the back of his body. And because some of this bit here, not that it's well spotted, does have a bit of movement as it flips over to support the transformation. So it's definitely not a complaint. It's just something to be mindful of when you're playing around with him, just to support his back wings so you can move those arms and not feel like you're accidentally transforming him. In terms of his vehicle mode, the jet definitely looks quite good, and overall it's definitely not too bad in the way of under kibble. Another was his robot mode in the way of back kibble. It was all very nicely streamlined and aligned, which is quite good. Which is pretty good for a jet this size. Some of his front proportions feel like they're a little bit bigger, but that's just more of a minor criticism than anything else. I think the only little thing to be mindful of is just if you want to have a really solid interlocked transformation, just be mindful of these bits on the arms that are supposed to tab in and secure the back of the wings. But other than that, his jet mode is also quite aesthetically pleasing. But I feel of the two modes, I think this will definitely be a posum in his robot mode. Now, given that it's been 2 years since his initial release, he will probably become very hard to find, at least mint in box. From a retail perspective, probably eBay, and there could still be some lingering stock from online stores depending where you are. Otherwise it'll probably be keeping an eye on things like eBay to see if people are getting rid of him and things like that. Definitely looking forward to looking at some of the other Seeker jets. I do have Starscream. I know Thundercracker is about to release shortly. I have bought Thrust, but I haven't had him shipped over, so Thrust is actually still in Japan. Hopefully they do Skywarp at some point in time. And maybe even, well, I still think Blitzwing is the fake ramjet. They've got Thrust, so they're missing Dirge. Maybe. We'll see. Depends how many recolors they want to do, although to be honest, they'll probably end up doing most of them over the years to keep filling out the line. So yes, that's a review and unboxing of Blitzwing. Video has gone a bit longer than I would have liked it to. I'll definitely have timestamps, so feel free to jump around if something's not catching your fancy. Hoping as time goes on the videos do start to shrink off a few more minutes, but admittedly Blitzwing was my first Voyager, so there we go. Thank you very much for watching this video. Feel free to leave a like, a comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the content. All of this does help support the channel and I do greatly appreciate it. Extra content can also be found on my Instagram account, link below. Stay safe and take care, and I will catch you all in the next video.